Welcome back to all of our friends, family, and foes, along with my three sons, Kellen, Garrett, and Gannon. I am Todd Foxx, and together we are the Fox Den Sports Podcast. And today we have our special guest, our New England Patriots insider, Lance Garrison, that's joining us today as well. So welcome again, Lance, for your, third, fourth, fifth time. I've lost count. So welcome again.
Always a good time when you join.
Always.
Well, today marks our 82nd episode, and it's a special one of our annual podcasts that we do, the quarterback rankings that we have. And this is a great time for me to shine and show these other four kids that they know nothing about quarterback play. But anyway, so with it being episode number 82, what player do you think of that wore the jersey 82?
I'll go Kellen Winslow Jr. for his 3 years at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
How many different numbers did this guy wear?
At least 3.
I know. Jump around from team to team.
I will go with Dwayne Bowe, wide receiver, most notably for the Kansas City Chiefs. Not a whole lot special about him. I just remember him because he was during that one season and 16, 17, maybe even earlier. He was the only receiver on that team to score a touchdown and their first receiver to score a catching touchdown in 20-something games. So that's why I remember Dwayne Bowe.
Okay.
Only one that came to mind was Jason Witten.
It's a good one. For sure. Lance, what do you got?
I'd have to second the tight end position with Gannon and go Ben Watson on his time with the Patriots.
Oh.
Interesting.
Solid player.
Decent,
He's still in New Orleans now, isn't he?
No, he's retired now.
He's retired, man.
Who am I thinking of?
Jimmy Graham.
Jimmy Graham.
Not even close, but
Jimmy Graham or
Yeah, why would he be?
Kellen Winslow Jr. also wore 82 for his 1 year with the Patriots.
I didn't know he played there. Well, number 82,
2 minutes ago.
82 to me is John Stallworth, one of the Hall of Fame receivers from the Steelers, won 4 Super Bowls in the 70s with the great Steeler teams. Had Terry Bradshaw, Kellen's buddy, and Lynn Swann. So that was a great team. But that is who I have as John Stallworth.
another quick name, Shannon Sharp. I figured somebody else would have named him, but yeah, Shannon Sharp's probably the best player to wear the number.
No shot. You didn't see Stallworth.
You obviously didn't see a lot of Shannon.
I saw him. Saw enough of him.
Oh,
Not a fan. All right. So Garrett, why don't you take it away since you want to go through this list that we have. We all emailed Garrett this week regarding our quarterbacks. So Garrett knows where everybody picked, and take it away, Garrett.
ladies and gentlemen, welcome to 2023 Fox Den Sports quarterback rankings. Last year we went 32 to 1. I think we did a tiering system. This year we're just going straight 32 through 1. So kind of give you some insight in our thought process on why we put them where, why they're not as high or why they're so low. We're just going to dive right into it. First up, I did a name generator randomizer. So these names are completely random in order. So first up, we got Gannon. Tell us what you got, Gannon.
Well, I started off with there's low experience kind of at the bottom of the list. It's risky. It's high risk, high reward kind of to put players with low experience higher on the list. But also, I just didn't really believe in any of these guys. Not much jump coming from the younger guys like Pickett or anything. And I see Tannehill just tanking. Other than that, I feel like it's pretty self-explainable. I guess I need to go through the order now because not everybody's watching. 32, Sam Howell. 31, Desmond Ridder. 30, Anthony Richardson. 28, Baker Mayfield. 27, Kenny Pickett. 26, Ryan Tannehill. 25, CJ Stroud, who I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up like low 20s, high teens by the end of the season. I just didn't want to do that right now.
I kind of figured you'd have Jordan Love the lowest since you didn't even say his name. So.
Yeah, you have Jordan Love at 29.
Man, you just
Oh, did I skip
you
him?
just
My bad.
zoomed right past him. So I thought, oh, okay, I guess
He's just that irrelevant, I guess.
All right, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
All right. Interesting. Next up, we got the man, the myth. We got Pa.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, I will tell you that I have Sam Howell, number 32. Don't know enough about Mr. Sam Howell at all this season. So with the Washington football team, don't be surprised if they're selecting number 1 next year. I hope not, as long as they don't pick Caleb Williams. Ritter from Atlanta Falcons at 31, Anthony Richardson at 30. Thing about Richardson is I don't know enough about him. I mean, we don't know enough about any of these guys. I think he's got some upside to him. It just depends. I mean, I think he's raw. I don't think we know how he's going to end up. He could be, in 3 or 4 years in the top 10, or he could be out of the league. That's either way. I just don't know. Jordan Love. Is this my list? Are you sure? I guess. All right. So yeah. Jordan Love at 29 again. Don't know enough about him. Anxious to see how he plays this year with the Packers. I know whenever Aaron Rodgers took over for Favre, they had a down year. I don't think they made the playoffs that first year, and everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, but a lot of people didn't think he was worth it. Well, Jordan Love could be the guy because he's been there for a little bit, learning the system. Baker Mayfield at 28, he's played. It's disappointing for me as an OU fan that he's this low, but it is what it is. I mean, he's fighting for a job right now, even with Kyle Trask. I don't even know if he's going to make it. That's what's sad about it. But the only reason I think you'll see Kyle Trask start is because they're trying to lose. That's the only thing I would say if Baker doesn't start. CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, both of those 27 and 26. You don't know. That's the thing. I just don't know enough about him. You hear all this good stuff about Bryce Young, which I'm not disagreeing with, but I personally think CJ Stroud throws the ball a lot better than Bryce Young. And then Mac Jones at 25. We'll see how he goes this year. Bill O'Brien, now the offensive coordinator, I think he can help get him back, hopefully, to I think next year maybe we'll talk about him in the mid-teens, perhaps. So those are my 25 through 32.
Next up, we got me, myself, and I. First up, I got Desmond Ridder at 32. I think he'll probably play about 5 games maybe, and then outside of that, he will not be starting. He nothing special about him whatsoever. He's got really good weapons, a good offensive line, hopefully a good running back for himself, but I don't think we're going to see any progression from him this year. Then I got Kenny Pickett. I mean, kind of the same deal with Ridder. We saw him play last year, and there just wasn't a whole lot that maybe just think he deserved to be much higher. I know we won a couple games and all that, but you can't wear 2 gloves and be much higher. You know what I mean? And then Mac Jones, probably at 30 for me, the weakest arm and the most unathletic quarterback in the NFL. I know they haven't done a lot of help in, trying to help him succeed, but that guy, man, his backups are playing just as good as him anytime they get in there. So I got Anthony Richardson as the lowest starting rookie. Like Dad said, I think he's got just as much potential, if not more, than all these other guys. But until we see that, we don't know. Bryce Young at 28 for me. I know he's having a good kind of rookie camp and training camp, so we'll see where that goes. Sam Howell, I know most people have him at their last spot. I think he's getting a lot of unnecessary hate because he, in the same position 2 years ago, was in contention for the number 1 pick with him and Rattler. So at one point, his, I guess you could say, ceiling was very, very high. I don't think it's changed. I think he just hasn't had the right opportunity, but I do think he's got some talent. He's going to have to be very consistent, and especially in the hard division. And then I have CJ Stroud up there for at 26, the highest rookie, I think, based on everything. Well, obviously everyone's seen on, training camp, and I know he's playing his first game tonight. I think he's going to have a pretty solid year. So, and then hot take, I got Justin Fields at 25. I think he's the most overrated player in the NFL. I think he's the most inaccurate quarterback, the worst decision-making quarterback. I again kind of the same deal with Mac. I know he doesn't have a lot of help, especially at the offensive line, but if your first instinct is to run, you should not be in contention for, quarterback, in my opinion. So that was my 32 to 25. Next up, we got Kellen.
Well, like a lot of us, through Sam Howell down at the very end there, he you don't really know a lot about him. He's playing for one of the worst teams, so I think they're just built for losing at this point. Like, they just don't have for as long as I can remember, other than a brief year with RG3, they don't got a winning culture. So I think a lot of it's situational. Desmond Ritter, he plays for the Falcons, kind of the same scenario. I don't know a whole lot. I think he could improve a little bit, but I just don't see him moving his way up the rankings much. I threw Bryce Young at the lowest of the quarterbacks just because situational again. I think there's a reason you're the number one pick. You're on the worst team now. So rarely do we see guys just come out there and light it up their rookie year because they are on the worst team. I put Richardson at 29. I think he's going to work his way up. He's massive. He's fast, and he can throw the ball pretty far. So if we can see that translate well in game, I think it could be nice. I put CJ Stroud above him, but honestly, if I would have watched the preseason game before, I probably would have put him at 30. He's not looking too great. He looks nervous, looks scared. He's no power behind that arm right now. I don't know what it is. Not accurate at all. Can you pick it? That guy, man, no shot. Yeah, I think he's going to work his way down this ranking. Deshaun Watson, I think this is going to go down as one of the literally worst signings ever. Like, way overpaid. I don't see him really improving on last year. I think with all the stuff, all the outside drama, time off from football, just not going to go well. Jordan Love, 25. It's hard. I don't know. I'd like to see him do well. I'd like to see him get up higher, but I need to see him play a season first to really put him anywhere higher than that.
Yeah. Next up, we've got Mr. Lance Garrison.
Oh,
those of
thank
you-
you for that, Gary.
Yeah, this picture, if you have to tune into the YouTube, this picture, I didn't have a good picture of Lance, so I just had to go to the next closest thing. So,
Dude, where's his team? Like, oh, there we go. Okay.
There we go. Okay, perfect. So obviously going from 32 and starting to go up, I've got Kyle Trask. I think he's going to end up beating out Baker Mayfield. But either way, I think they're the worst quarterback starting in the league. I mean, it's the first year in a while we've seen a depth chart have or on it for the starting quarterback. This guy,
If not
or
ever.
that guy. Yeah.
yeah.
So if that doesn't say it itself, I think that kind of does. I've got Sam Howell at 31. They've got a decent team out there. I think they could make something with it, but I don't see him shooting up much higher than the very low 20s if he moves up at all. Jordan Love at 30. I mean, there's a reason they took this guy in the first round and he hasn't started a game yet. I just don't think he's that good. I think they kind of whiffed on it, but it's kind of in Trey Lance, but they're just kind of really going for it. They got to try to show the fan base they didn't make a mistake with the pick, but personally, I think they did. Desmond Ritter at 29. The Falcons team is horrible. Even if Desmond Ritter can be decent, they have no talent on that team. I don't see them doing well at all. Kenny Pickett at 28. They've got some better talent than the Falcons, but I think their ego is, I mean, it's been the same issue. It's a culture issue in Pittsburgh. I don't see that changing this year. And for that reason, I don't see him doing very well. I've got Russell Wilson at 27. That's probably a pretty hot take. He hasn't played well since 2021, and he's just been a detriment to any team he's been on, whether that be Seattle or Denver. I think Sean Payton will improve the team. I think they will run it more effectively, but I don't think Russell Wilson will be playing that good of football. Then I've got Anthony Richard at 26, followed by CJ Stroud. Really, with the rookies, I just ranked them how they were drafted. Obviously, we really haven't seen anything out of them, so I'm just going to kind of rely on the draft and trust that the team scouts know a little bit more than I do, but I think I have all three of them clumped together. But for now, I've got Richardson at 26 and Stroud at 25.
Respectable list there. Next up, we got 24 through 16 of the rankings. So we got back up to Gannon.
So I guess Bryce Young is right there with it. It was just off the other list, but we all ranked him pretty close. I think he's better than Stroud, but I think situation might help Stroud more than Bryce Young. With Gary, I honestly agree with Gary. I put Fields at 23. I just don't see it. Like, he's like a worse than Lamar, but better than Anthony Richardson in my head. Like, they're all three similar players. And then I got Garoppolo at 22. Don't see him making a difference in the game. He'll manage it, keep you in it maybe, but he'll never put you beyond the point to win. Then I got 21 at Matt Stafford. He kind of took a dip. I don't know much else to say to that. Russell Wilson at 20. Same thing there. I got Brock Purdy at 19, which I don't know where you guys are going to rank him. I saw some people on like Twitter and everywhere that I was looking, they were putting him a lot higher, but I don't think he's actually as good as what people are ranking him as. I think 19 is a pretty fair spot. He can go up and down. He might stay. Daniel Jones, 18. I think one of the more underrated quarterbacks in the league. I can't remember, it was 20-something touchdowns in, was it 16 games last year? I can't remember. Not as many throwing as what you'd like as a quarterback, but he gets it in the end zone. Mac Jones at 17. Gary, was it you that had him? Where did you have him?
Like 30 or 29 or something.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, because every quarter, like, you put any quarterback in that situation, they're going to do fair, but I still think he's better than what you give him credit for. Then 16, Derek Carr. It's my 24 through 16.
Well, from 16 to 24, I've got Kenny Pickett at 24. I think he's got a lot of upside to him. I still think there's some of these other guys. I honestly think Pickett will have a solid year next year, or this upcoming year, where we'll probably see him around the 16, 17 range. Tannehill, he's there for a little bit. He won't be there much longer. He's there to help hand the ball off to Derrick Henry. Try not to make mistakes. He's a good quarterback. He's not a great quarterback. He's, I think, right where he needs to be. I think, at number 22, Garoppolo, I'm anxious to see if he were to stay healthy, how the Raiders would be this year. I just don't know if he'll play more than, 11 games at the most. 10, I'm guessing probably around 10. Derek Carr, that's another situation. New team. The reason I'm not ranking him higher, which I think he's a better quarterback than that, but I just don't think he's got the coaching around him. If Sean Payton were still there, I think he would be much higher, but I think Carr's at 21. Brock Purdy at 20. I'll be honest with you, I would rather have gotten that guy even lower. Still not sold on him. I know he came in and won some games for the 49ers, but they're such a good team around him that it's hard to be bad, I guess. I could see him once the defensive coordinators get some more film on him, they will put a stop to him. He's not going to be any higher than this. I'm just telling you, in his career, he's not going to be that. He's not going to be any higher than number 20 in my list. 19, Geno Smith. I'm not a fan of Geno Smith. I put him there. I'm still not a fan. Kyler Murray at 18. That's a disappointment to me as well. Kyler's, I just don't trust him. I don't think he off the field. I think they put that contract, even though they redid it, saying he doesn't study enough. I think it's true. I think he's a cancer to this team, unfortunately. And I put all that in there. And the same thing with him. I don't know if he'll be able to stay healthy as long with number 17, Matt Stafford. I don't think he'll be healthy either. I think he'll get beat up pretty early. I don't think he'll end up playing the last part of the year. And at number 16, Russell Wilson, I think he'll improve this year. I think he's obviously on the downward slope of his career. I think he's got one, this year, next year, and that probably, in my opinion, may be it. This may be it with him anyway. Sean Payton, depending on how well it goes. If he didn't perform, I could see Sean Payton say adios. That's where I get Russell Wilson at 16.
My 24, I got Russell Wilson. I am a firm believer that Russell Wilson was never good. I think he got carried by the team around him. And we've seen that the last 4-5 years. And not a lot of improvement. Like Dad said, he just doesn't seem to be a great team player. I know we've all heard the story of him having his own office or whatever. Even his teammates got to go through his agent and stuff like that to talk to him. No, thank you. And then I got Brock Purdy at 23. I mean, I don't think he's the reason they were winning games. I think they could have thrown anybody on this list and they would have done just as good, if not better. I do have Baker at 22. Only reason I have him that high is because he's done things that other people haven't. He has carried teams to wins before, whether that's Cleveland or the Rams even. That's kind of why I have him that high. And I have Deshaun Watson at 21. He wasted his entire prime, I think, with his dumb decisions, missing a couple years. And I think that alone just ruined his career. I think he's only going to go down from here. I don't think he's going to do anything special the rest of his career. Jordan Love at 20, I have him pretty high compared to everyone else. From what we've seen from him, it's looked pretty good, I will say. Whenever he's gotten into games, and I know he started a game too, whenever he was pretty young, it's been pretty solid. So I'm very excited to see what he can do, especially with some good young weapons in Green Bay and a good defense in a pretty wide open division as well. Derek Carr at 19. He's a good quarterback, makes some good throws, but he also makes some really dumb ones too. I have Kyler at 18. Honestly, he probably could have been lower, kind of like Dad was saying. He's had some really good games. He's had some really good plays, but other than that, I wouldn't want him, honestly, as my quarterback. So I got Geno Smith at 17. I think last year was a fluke. We'll find that out this year. The only reason he's this high is because of last year. If it wasn't because of his phenomenal year a year ago, he'd probably be low 30s. So I got Ryan Tannehill at 16. He's just a game manager. Nothing exciting about him. He's not really going to ever really lose you games. He can put up some good numbers here and there. We've seen him take him a little bit into the playoffs as well. But, yeah, nothing really exciting about Tannehill on my end. But
Well, like it's already been said, I think Brock Purdy just kind of a fluke. We've seen this before. I've seen it a couple times, but specifically with the 49ers, they're on a roll. Quarterback gets hurt. You bring in a backup, looks really good for the rest of the season, but he's on one of the best teams. So I think he's going to be another Kaepernick, another Nick Foles. I think anybody could have come in on that team and done pretty well. I'd like to see him do decent, but I don't see it. I don't know. I think any quarterback could do decent on that team. Put Baker at 23. It's sad, but I think Baker was also one of those drafted into the worst team, bad situation. And I think also Baker plays his best football when he's the underdog, and you can't win Super Bowls like that. You're either the underdog or you're expected to do well, but you're not gonna have a great season or a great career like that. I could see it happening in a few years. I could see him being one of those guys that doesn't start for a couple of years. Somebody gets hurt or he signs with somebody and starts, and he pulls a Geno Smith and has one really solid year, which brings me into Geno Smith. I think that he just had a good year. Nobody saw it coming, but I think it was just another underdog situation. He looked a lot better than anybody expected, but he's not really that good. He's just going to go down. Mac Jones at 21. Honestly, just couldn't really figure out where to put him. He's okay. I don't think he's terrible, but from what I've seen so far, just don't see him as that guy. Could prove us wrong, but I mean, he has one of the best coaches in the history of the NFL, and he's not done that well. We'll see. Justin Fields at 20. I personally think he could get better. I think all he has to do is just improve his arm, and he could be one of the best. He hasn't had weapons, but now he's getting weapons, not the best weapons, but more than he had for the most part of last year. So we'll see what happens with that. Daniel Jones at 19. I really think he's just I could have swapped him and Mac Jones, honestly. I think they're the same person. He has a really good coach, a coach that improved Josh Allen to be on an elite level, and we saw what happened to Josh Allen without without Dable, or however you say it. So I think Daniel Jones and look, what do you have, like 14 or 15 touchdowns last year? He had less than a touchdown a game. Like
Passing specifically, but yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah, passing, but you can't be that good. Kyler at 18. I think he could be lower if it wasn't for his legs, but I think he's gonna get lower. He's lost all his weapons at this point. I feel like his chance is over. I wish he did better. I think he could have done better, but it just didn't work out that way. I think a lot of wasted time with him. Jared Goff at 17. He's just one of those guys. Honestly, surprised he's still starting in the league. He's not terrible. It's just I feel like ever since that loss in the Super Bowl, he's gone down. He could surprise us. Detroit in general just looked really nice last year. They were fun to watch, but it's Jared Goff. Garoppolo 16, probably it feels really high, honestly. 16 up. It was just like at that point I stopped caring about the list. It's like these guys are all irrelevant. Garoppolo I think is going to look good with Adams though. Like I think almost any quarterback other than apparently Derek Carr should be able to throw to Devontae Adams. So I think that's going to make Jimmy G look good. He's one of those guys. He's a game manager, doesn't win games, but he doesn't lose them. He's a system quarterback. I think that's why he fit the 49ers, because literally any quarterback that can just follow the game plan can go in there and just plug in. So we'll see. I think I'd love to see him do well, but just because I'd love to see any three teams besides the Chiefs do well in that division. So I'll be rooting for any of them.
100%.
All right, so picking up at 24, going up to 16, like I mentioned earlier, Bryce Young rounding out 24, purely based off just where they were drafted. I've got Ryan Tannehill at 23. I think by the end of the year, he probably loses the starting job and is out of why am I blanking? Not Memphis, Nashville, sorry. Before the end of the year, easily. I think he's done. I think he needs to go ahead and either become a mentor or probably go into commentating. K Murray, I mean, this could be Keegan Murray, Kenneth Murray, Kyler Murray. They're all horrible. I mean, it really doesn't matter here. His best, like you guys said, his best strength was his legs. And there's very, very few quarterbacks that come back from an ACL injury that aren't immediately scared of running because of the same thing. I think he will lose an element to his game. And I think that was the only element that made him somewhat good. So I've got him at 22. Justin Fields at 21. He's like half of Steph Curry to me. He's so fun to watch. He's so fun if you have him in fantasy, but if you actually need him to win you football games, he's just not that good. He doesn't make very good throws. He's inaccurate. He seems rather temperamental, even though he tries to do zen on the sideline. So I just don't see him being nearly as good as some people have him. Daniel Jones, I mean, he is what he is, right? He's a game manager. He's not going to win you games. He will lose you the occasional game, but he's kind of one of those where it's hard. He's good enough that it's hard to move off of him if you have no better options. You know, it wasn't worth it for them to try to trade up in the draft and move off him. So he's what they've got. Geno at 19, pretty much echoing what everyone said. I don't think he's that good, but he went on a pretty good run last year. So I'll give him benefit of the doubt and say he's going to be here. He's got a really good wide receiver core. So I think that alone could bump him up a few spots, but I think that's the ceiling pretty much for Geno this year. Brock Purdy at 18. It's kind of crazy to think that pretty much everyone has said just about anyone could play in the 49ers system. But the only reason Brock Purdy's starting is because they traded $1 million assets for a guy that actually can start in their system so that they have to start Brock Purdy instead. And I just don't think he's that good. I think the system's incredible, like everyone says. It's just for some reason Trey Lance can't play in it, so Brock Purdy's a starter. Garoppolo at 17, I mean, that one's another one. kind of like Daniel Jones. He's not going to win you a few games. As a Patriots fan, I watched Garoppolo. If you can survive the 1 to 2 boneheaded throws he's going to throw a game, you'll be all right because the rest of the throws are going to be good. But you can always count on him for that 1 or 2 throws where you're just like, what was he thinking? Where was he going with that ball? And then lastly, at 16, I've got Mac Jones. No surprise that I have him ranked the highest as a Patriots fan, but I mean, we're talking about a guy that came off one of the best rookie seasons the NFL's ever seen, rivaling Dak's as far as statistics. And he goes in with arguably a bottom 5 skilled group and a defensive coordinator trying to draw up a scheme for him. Anyone that watched the games last year knows that it wasn't a quarterback problem. It was an offense problem. And so I'm not going to degrade Mac Jones for that. So I've still got him pretty high.
Yeah, we'll see where he's at next year. We'll see where he's at. Now moving into the top 15 through 11 before we hit the top 10.
Starting off 15, I think Kyler Murray's going to have a huge bounce back year. Here's the thing. I don't disagree with really anything you guys have said. I just think he's actually going to improve this year, and maybe his stats won't look as good, maybe not as many wins, but stuff that's out of his control. Yeah. But I think within him, I think he's going to be a lot better than what we've seen. Then I have 14, Jared Goff, which looking at this now, I'm going to swap 14 and 13. I'm going to put Geno Smith at 14. I actually believe in what I saw. I think he's a solid quarterback. I don't know if he'll have quite statistically as good of a year this year, but I think he's a good quarterback. He can actually win you games. He will, just like any other quarterback, he might lose some, but unlike the ones we've been listing right before, he will make a difference in some games. And then Jared Goff at 13, I think he's a good quarterback. I don't know what else you can say. He has, I'm trying to think who are his top 3 weapons right now, other than St. Brown.
Amon-Ra, rookie running back, and
Rookie tight end, Laporta.
rookie tight end, but then also Jamison Williams, who won't be playing for a couple of games. But
yeah, I mean, I didn't know that, but he finds a way to get him the ball. That's the main part. And then 12, I have Tua, which I'm still shaky on Tua. He has some of the best weapons you could possibly ask for. Great offense, perfect surroundings. I don't see any excuse as to why he shouldn't be higher. I just think he's not actually as good as what his weapons are helping him be, if that makes sense. And then 11, Kirk Cousins. I think this is where it starts to separate between the rest of them. I like Kirk Cousins a lot. Some people say he gets carried by Jefferson. They have an argument, but he's been good his whole career, and he's incredible at getting Jefferson the ball himself. Primetime games, maybe not the best, but some guys just aren't primetime players, I guess. That happens to everybody sometimes. But I think, like I said, 11 is where it starts to separate from the rest.
Well, I am a primetime player, so this is where I start heating it up real quick. Number 15, Daniel Jones. Honestly, maybe a little high, I get, but I want to see here this list of quarterbacks right here. Probably 13, 14, and 15 for sure. Make or break years. Daniel Jones is one of them. I think with Daboll, his head coach. I know he's got Darren Waller now. Not that that's going to do much, but he's going to. I guess what I'm trying to say is having him at 15 just shows how weak the quarterback play is right now in the NFL. Unfortunately, I mean they can obviously do much better than I ever could, but I've got him at 15. Tua, number 14. He again make or break year. How many times is he going to get injured? When he does play, he's solid. I want to see what else he can do. I think he's got a great coach. I think he's got, Tyreek Hill. He's got Jalen Waddle. He's got some weapons there. Let's see what can happen. I would love to see the kid play 16, 17 games, I'd like to say 17, but if he sat out the 17th week of the season or the last week of the season because they're in the playoffs and they don't want to get anybody hurt, then I'm good with it. Justin Fields, I know I got him probably higher than much everybody else. He can run like crazy. He's finally getting some weapons. He's got DJ Moore. He's got Claypool still there. I don't know who the running back is this year, but I do know, I believe their offensive coordinator, I know for sure, was with Green Bay for several years, not as the OC, but he was on the coaching staff with Green Bay. So they've got some weapons for him. I think this is a make or break year for him as well. Jared Goff, journeyman quarterback, even though he's only played for 2 teams, solid. I think they came out of nowhere, even though I picked him to win 9 games last year. They kind of came out of nowhere last year. So now they're going to have some games where the teams are not going to take them lightly anymore. And then Kirk Cousins, number 11, love for him to be higher. Just Kirk Cousins. I mean, he's going to have some really good games, but then if it's a primetime game, majority of the time, I think he may have only won 1. I think he may have won his first one last year, but he's just Kirk Cousins. Unfortunately, I think he's a good quarterback. I just don't think he is top notch, unfortunately. But anyway, that's who I've got 11 through 15.
Starting off at number 15 for me, I've also got Daniel Jones, middle of the pack quarterback, paid like a top quarterback, but I think he can be higher. I really do. I think he showed out last year that he has talent, and he showed kind of why they picked him so high and where they did, but he's got an uphill battle just because everyone's kind of gave up on him so quick, including me. But I got Stafford at 14. I think he's still one of the most talented quarterbacks in the league. The only reason I guess you could say he's not higher is because of his age, but he's shown he can win the big games, and that's honestly to me the most important at that position. 13, I have Jimmy Garoppolo, one of the most winningest quarterbacks of all time. And there's not much you could say about that. Like, that's a very important stat for the quarterback position. You can argue he was for, New England, he could just dumping off passes and it's designed to work, or San Francisco, who's just got a really good team, but he wins like Lance was saying, or somebody was saying, like, he'll make some dumb choices here and there, but he usually decides or figures out a way to win the game. And then I got Goff at 12. I mean, I don't know. He's been probably top half quarterback every year he's played. It's more of just the hype that was around him being the number 1 pick. But I think he's a very solid quarterback, and I think they could make a push for the playoffs and pretty deep in the playoffs this year if they play their cards right. And then also I have Kirk Cousins at 11. Good quarterback. I mean, like Gannon was saying, he did well in Washington where he didn't really have a whole lot of weapons there as well. But now at Minnesota, winning the division for the first time, and I'm not really sure how many years, I feel like, but very impressive. And that division turned out to be a lot more competitive than you thought too. So, with that new head coach and the new calling the plays, I think he definitely kind of took another level, and I think we'll continue to see that from him for the next couple of years.
Well, I got Derek Carr at 15. It kind of feels high for him, but like it feels like it's like you want him to be a top 15 quarterback. He doesn't seem like he's that bad. Just things just did not work out last year. But I think if he can figure things out, if that team stays healthy, he's got good weapons. He's got Kamara. I can't remember how many. Is it 3 games he suspended?
3 games, yeah.
So like Kamara, pretty good running back, like really good, like kind of one of those receiving backs. So that's a solid weapon for him. Olave and Thomas, if Thomas can stay healthy, he's got good receivers. He has probably the best tight end we've ever seen, who can also double as the best quarterback we've ever seen, Taysom Hill.
I was like, what?
Yeah, no. But I don't know. He's got a decent team around him. Like, if you take away Devontae Adams himself, I feel like this is one of the best teams, like all around teams. I mean, I guess he had Adams and Jacobs, but like, I just feel like there's more like solid players instead of just a couple superstars. So I think we could see him do well. Russell Wilson, I don't know. I don't know if I like putting him at 14, but he's got a history. He's been good. Unlike what Gary said, he's a Super Bowl winning quarterback. I think this, like I think Dad said, make or break year, and I think make or break year for all of these players, just like he said. But he's got Sean Payton coming in, so I think it's all or nothing. Sean Payton's going to demand excellence, and he's either going to do really well with this, or we're not going to ever hear of him again. Matt Stafford, I think the biggest reason he's even ranked this high is just because he's been in the league so long. Like personally, if I was picking a team, I'd pick all these young quarterbacks before him, but he's been in the league for a bit. He's got experience. But like I said on the last episode, I don't think we will ever hear of him again after this year. I think this is it. Like that team was built for one solid year, and everything about that team is done. Tannehill, I don't know. He's just he reminds me of Phillip Rivers. He's one of those guys you always expect to be pretty good, and he's just there. He's been in one of the worst divisions in the NFL for quite a few years now, so he's always going to make the playoffs. I agree. I think Lance said I think he loses his starting job by the end of the year, and I think he should. I think they should just go ahead and get a younger guy going because Tannehill's never going to take you to a Super Bowl. Just go ahead and start a young guy trying to develop him. And for the fourth in a row, we got Cousins at 11. I think I don't know. I think I overhate him sometimes because I look at his stats and like literally him and Dak have the exact same stats, like almost identical. I think somebody might have actually sent that to me today. I don't know where I saw that. I don't know. But he does have the best wide receiver in the NFL to make him look a little bit better than what he actually is. I think if he was younger, I would probably like him more because I think he's got a good career ahead of him. But I think he's hit his peak, and it's just now he's just stagnant. And I don't know. I think he's going to be on his way down pretty soon as well.
Starting out at 15 and going up to 11. So at 15, I've got Derek Carr. I think we've all pretty much got him ranked about the same spot. I think he's a better quarterback than we saw his last year in the Raiders. I just think for whatever reason, him and the Raiders could never fully jive and just never get going. Maybe if he had a few more years of John Gruden, they could have figured it out. But obviously, he just couldn't work with the system, and something with him and Devontae Adams and just that whole team just never went well. Matthew Stafford at 14. I mean, I'd have to look up. I know at one point their Super Bowl winning year, right before the playoffs, he was leading the league in interceptions. I don't think he's actually that good. I think he got carried by a pretty good offense and an insane defense that year. But I think he's kind of a game manager, and at this point, I think he's just slowly falling off. And I think we could see Stetson Bitten start a few games down the stretch if he doesn't perform well. Tua at 13. I mean, gosh, if this guy can stay healthy, I think he can be one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Well, I say best, top 10 probably, but I don't see him staying healthy, which is the whole reason I've got him down here at 13. I know so far in camp, granted it's camp, but the Dolphins O-line has looked like a mess. So that combined with his history, I don't have high hopes for Tua this year. And then I figured walking in, I know Kellen's not as much of a Cowboys fan, but walking in with 4 Cowboys fans, I figured I'd be the only one to rank Dak actually accurately. So I've got Dak Prescott at 12. Dak hasn't been good since 2021, and he really has never been that good. His rookie year, he was carried by the best running back in the league, who was also only good for 1 year. He got hurt in 2022, didn't play great last year. He's throwing more and more picks every year. I just don't see him. I don't see him progressing any from where he's at. Can he win you games? Yeah. Can he lose you games? Yeah. I don't see him getting any better at this point. And then I think I'm the only one left to list off Deshaun Watson. I've got him at 11. Personally, I mean, he was an MVP caliber player before he left. I'm going to knock him because he's been out of the league for 2 years, but I still don't think he's lost that much of a step. I think he's actually got some underrated weapons out there in Cleveland. I think they find a way. I think they scoot into the wild card, and I think he's just outside of MVP conversations this year.
Wow. That is a bold take right there.
We're throwing
Moving
that one on
on.
Instagram this week.
Yeah, you can expect to see that tomorrow. Moving on to number 10, into the top 10. First up, we got Mr. Gannon.
Ooh.
Man, look at your beautiful stuff there, man.
Yeah,
Dak
we'd like to shout
Prescott.
out Gary real quick.
real good. Looks good.
He's been getting in trouble at work because he's been spending so much time on this
Dude.
on this
man,
podcast
dude.
and
He's-
slides, and
He was up till 11:30 last night. He didn't do that.
he's
work.
doing excellent work.
Yeah.
We want to shout him out.
There you go.
Number 10, I have Dak Prescott. Is that 2 spots next to Lance? I agree with what he said. He's not going to progress. Like at best, he'll I'm forgetting the word, plateau. He'll just kind of like stay the same. He's going to be like what you expect is exactly what he's going to give you. He'll make those couple games where it's like, man, he could be an MVP caliber if he just figured it out, like played that much better, but he'll never be that good. Those couple games, he looks incredible. He'll just there's always something about it. I feel like there's always like big moment in a big game. I just never have 100% confidence in him. And that rookie year, it felt great, but then after that kind of wore off, you realize he's also flawed, just as any quarterback. But I think Lance kind of described it best with he's not going to progress, and other quarterbacks are. I think he's top 10 is right where he should be.
I have got Mr. Deshaun Watson at number 10. He's only 27 years old. He'll be 28, I believe, around the second, third week of the season. He's arguably got one of the best offensive lines with Philadelphia and probably maybe Kansas City. It's involved in that discussion. He's got a great running game with Nick Chubb. He's got he's still got Cooper, who's not one of the greatest, but he's a solid receiver out there. He has had a couple years off. I think now that he's been in a training camp with the guys, he's been there for a little bit. I think you'll see some of that rust fall off. I think this guy has upswing still. I think he's just entering his prime. I think he's got another couple. I say couple. I think he's got several years left. And I think he's going to show some people, I don't agree with what he did off the field, but on the field, I think he's going to show some people, hey, he's back. And I believe they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. And that, like I said, you can't undervalue that running game that he's got. And I think he's going to be fantastic this year.
My number 10, I've got Tua Tagovailoa. I think he has my respect enough to be in the top 10, but obviously with injuries and stuff, that's just the only thing keeping him down. Like statistically, whenever he's playing and starting a game, he's got a really good like winning percentage, stuff like that. He's beaten some really good teams, but until I see him, play most of, if not all of the season, which I know counts as all the time, the best whatever is availability or something like that.
Best abilities, availability.
Yeah, right there. Yeah.
Thanks, Bill.
And he just doesn't have that. So good arm, but with the weapons around him, like you'd also say the same thing. Like you would think he'd be at the very least top 10.
Well, I too have Tua. I think it's hard because it's been said. I think he has the ability to be like top 5 or 6 almost, but those concussions, like I think one concussion this year and his career is probably over. But he's got great weapons with Tyreek and Jalen Waddle, like one of the fastest duos we've seen. So like, I think his arm's underrated. It's not the best in the league, but I think people like to hate on him for his arm. But I don't think it's that bad. I think he's solid. He can move, but it's not necessarily his first instinct. It should definitely not be his second or third instinct anymore. I think pre-concussion, he was like, what were they, like 6-0? They were doing really good. Like he was looking really good. Just those 2 concussions, like really messed him up. I think I like Mike McDaniel as a coach, so I think he'll do well there. I don't know. I see Tua being top 10. I think if he doesn't have a concussion, I think you take away injuries, he could work his way up this ranking. But I think he's one bad hit away from retiring.
At 10, I've got Trevor Lawrence. I think Trevor Lawrence has the potential to eventually hit number one on this list. But let's also not forget, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe in that playoff game, the first half, he threw 4 interceptions. So we can't just sweep that under the rug. I think his ceiling is as high as he wants it to be, but I still think he has some things he needs to polish on. And I think there's some other guys that are just at a better spot right now. But I mean, he's still young. This is only his second, third year in the league. Still got plenty of time to work on it and become an easily top 5, top 3 quarterback. But for now, I've got him at 10. Wouldn't shock me for him to jump up to 5 or 6 by the end of the year, though.
Number 9, Gannon.
At number 9, I got Deshaun Watson. I think he's going to have a terrible first 3 games. Maybe that second half of the third game, he'll start to pick it up. But I think after this 3 kind of get the rust off. I mean, he was top 2 quarterback in the league whenever he was still playing. He's out. Is this 2 years out of the league?
Yeah.
You gotta. That's a big shadow on him. But I think he'll be fine, dude. I think he's gonna be incredible. I'm not gonna say he'll be an MVP candidate. Is that what you said, Lance? Or just outside of that?
Just outside, yeah.
I don't think he'll be quite up there. Maybe next year, but I think he's gonna have an incredible year and kind of remind people he's that incredibly talented.
All right. At number 9, I have Dak Prescott. I can't believe I ranked him even this high. I'm a big Dallas fan. I am. I want Dak to be good, but I think he's hit his ceiling. I don't think he can get any better. I just don't. I think he'll always, since he plays for the Dallas Cowboys, he'll get a lot more publicity than he deserves. He could easily him and what is his name from Minnesota?
CD or
Minnesota.
Kirk
Cousins. Yeah, sorry. Kirk Cousins, they could be the same, swapped. I mean, it's that could be that simple, honestly. I think he's going to put a lot of stats up. I think he's going to be good for fantasy owners, but if you're going to want to win championships and stuff, I don't believe that's there. Like I said, I mean, honestly, he's probably a little bit too high, but when I started looking at some of these other guys, we got a lot of younger quarterbacks in the league right now that I think helps bump him up. I want him to be great. I do, but I just don't see it. That's just what I got.
Number 9 for me, I have Lamar Jackson. Honestly, for me, it's kind of the same argument I have for Justin Fields. Still doesn't have one of the greatest arms. His first instinct is to still just run the ball. He's just a lot better at everything than Justin Fields. And I mean, we've seen him play some of the better quarterbacks plenty of times, and he doesn't win. He can't beat those guys. So until you can beat a single one of them, you're not going to be much higher on the list. And also, I'm not too worried about his injuries, honestly, at all. But I don't think he's going to get much higher than this. I think his whole career, he's going to have playoffs just about every year. But other than that, probably once this current contract's up, he's pretty much done. He'll be a Michael Vick. He'll be backing up somebody, teaching someone else. Could be wrong, but I don't think there's anything special about him. He doesn't have, again, greatest arm, and until your first instinct is actually pass, you're not a quarterback in my book. But anyways.
I got Justin Herbert. Pains me to put him at 9, but he look what happened to him in the playoffs. Just completely everything fell apart. I think until they get rid of what's his name, Brandon Staley, I don't see him ever hitting his potential. He has a bunch of wide receiver 2s on his team. He needs a wide receiver 1. I don't know. After seeing him in that playoffs, I think he probably would have been 6 if it wasn't for that last playoff game. But it was just that just can't happen to be an elite quarterback. I think he can be better, and I think he will be better. It also doesn't help that he's in a I mean, it was a pretty disappointing division last year, but it's a pretty good division. That makes it a little harder. But I think he'll work his way up and bounce back. But they got to move on from Staley, or else they're never going to get his full potential.
Here at number 9, I've got Jared Goff. I got to say, I think the Jared Goff slander is crazy, and the fact that I believe everybody else ranked him outside the top 10. The Lions were one of the best surprise teams last year, and that was all because of Jared Goff. He had one of his best years, arguably his best year last year, and I don't see it going down. Sure, they trade away TJ Hawkinson, they lose Swift, but they gain Jahmyr Gibbs, who I think is arguably better than Bijan Robinson. They get the best tight end in the draft in Laporta. They've got Williams, St. Brown. I believe DJ Chark is still on that team. Jared Goff's just throwing the ball incredibly. He's rejuvenated. He's playing great. Not to mention, from the Lions aspect, they got a haul to take on Jared Goff. And outside of 1 year, Jared Goff has played better than Matthew Stafford every year he's been there. So that's why I've got him at 9.
And they have easily the best offensive line in the league too. So,
Oh,
and those guys
yeah.
are young, so they'll be there for a minute.
And I think they still have more draft capital in the future from the Matthew Stafford trade, if I remember right.
Yeah. Moving on to number 8. We got Gannon. You're muted, by the way, so if you want to.
I have Lamar Jackson at number 8. I agree with everything Gary had to say. You know, like if you look at his stats and his talent and ability, like he's got to be an elite quarterback, right? Yeah, but there's too many just question marks with his arm. And like just whenever he matches up against those, like Gary said, top quarterbacks, but I'm just going to say top teams in general, there's always something wrong with it as to why he can't win. And like, there's really nothing else to it. I feel like it's just the same thing over and over again, and it's just going to continue to be that. And there's like not much else to expand upon.
I have Lamar Jackson as well. I think he's about as high as he may ever get. I think he obviously had an MVP year at one point. I think he is still living off some of that hype that he did back then. Don't think he's got as much weapons. I mean, the guy runs like crazy. He's going to win you a lot of regular season games. He's not going to win you in the playoffs, just like Dak. He doesn't throw the ball as well. He's living right now off his past, his reputation. But I've got him at number 8.
Number 8 for me, I've got Dak Prescott. I think I've still got a lot of high hopes for him. I do think he has the potential to be, top 5 for him. Everyone for me, honestly, like 10 through 5 could be a lot higher, but it's just until they beat, the better quarterbacks or win the big games, that's kind of where they're going to be stuck. So for him, he's kind of the same boat, like great talent, had some really, really good games, good years. He'll win you a lot of games. I don't think he'll lose you a ton. Like he'll throw, turnover. I think last year he did average like 1 a game, but not much worse than a lot of other guys. So I think 8's right around what's a good spot for him. And I think, if he has a good year, he could be top 5. If not, we could see him, drop pretty far down. So.
I got Trevor Lawrence. I hate putting him here. I hate Trevor Lawrence. I just hate him. I think if it wasn't for that playoff game, and obviously he started off terrible, but if it wasn't for the ending of that game, him and Herbert would be swapped. But because of that game, I think he has to go higher than Herbert for now. He's also in the worst division in the NFL. Like it's kind of, I feel like at this point, it's almost a lock to hit the playoffs, unless Tennessee can do well. But I don't like him. But it almost feels like last year was his rookie year. I feel like he's kind of like Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow got hurt his rookie year, so it's hard to even count that. Trevor Lawrence with all this coaching drama, it was hard to just. That first year just didn't feel real. He played well last year. wasn't anything crazy, but again, like he's one of those guys that goes to a terrible team, and he did decent, made the playoffs. He's got some decent weapons. So I don't know. I don't like him, but he's at 8 right now.
Sitting at 8, big shock here. I've also got Lamar Jackson, pretty much for all the reasons mentioned. As I know Kellen has said before, the best ability is availability, and he just can't stay healthy. We've yet to see a quarterback of his style running. You think of the Michael Vicks, you think of the Randall Cunninghams, stay healthy and prolong their careers for over 8+ years. Right now, to me, Lamar's isn't heading in that direction. I think he's probably got 4 more years left, then he'll probably be done in the league. I think right now he's still really good at what he does. I think they've got a really good system built around him. Even though Greg Roman did just leave, I think they'll still be fairly well, and he'll still be a pretty good player. But I see him starting to drop off this list in the coming years very, very quickly.
Number 7. Yeah.
I put Aaron Rodgers at number 7, which I'm very interested to see his new offense. I mean, he's got good weapons. Who is it? Garrett Wilson, Alan Lazard, and is it Corey Davis? I feel like that's not it, but I he's
Randall
got
Cobb.
weapons.
Yeah,
new
he's still got
system.
Cobb. Yeah.
It does. Okay, see, there we go. I mean, but the only reason I'm not putting him higher, I think this is whenever he starts going down, and some other quarterbacks fully take the spot above him. That's really all I gotta say.
Yeah.
Very profound.
I
Not
agree.
really.
I agree with Gannon with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he's obviously hit his peak. I know. I think he's been a little bit rejuvenated in New York so far. I mean, Hard Knocks, all that kind of stuff. He seems to be more enjoying himself more. I just don't. I think they're going to start out. It's going to be a little tough for him. I mean, I don't know. I think probably 10 wins maybe is their max, if that. I think he's still good, but I don't think he's one of the top 5 anymore.
Number 7 for me, I have also got Aaron Rodgers. I think he's probably still one of, if not the most talented quarterback in the NFL, obviously, minus Patrick Mahomes. But the only thing having him this far down is his age. Other than that, I think he still has all the talent. It's just going to be a matter of, how long can he keep it and stay consistent? Like, it could happen in the middle of the season, just gone, but I think he's still an elite quarterback. I think if I were to, have 1 year to build a team, I would not mind to have Aaron Rodgers as, my quarterback, even though last year or, during the playoffs, he failed again just whenever against, I don't remember who they lost to, but he's kind of in the boat where every year they make it, they have a lot of high hopes, and he just can't pull it together for the last couple of games of the year. But anyways, I think 7 for me is a good spot for him. Still has a lot of elite talent, but he's just old.
How good would the Cowboys be if they had Aaron Rodgers just for this year instead of Dak? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think this year it'd be the same, but personally, that's why I have him back to back.
Well, it shocks me. It hurts me, and it's just I can't believe that I have Dak higher than everybody. I can't remember if Gannon's even rated him yet, but I Dak I don't think is that great. I said last year I thought it was the make or break year, that it was either he was gonna do really well or he was done. I think he did hit just such a perfect line that it was neither. He hasn't proven anybody wrong, but he looked just good enough in some of those games that it's like, oh, let's give him another shot. Like, I think the biggest thing Dak has going for him is he is in the NFC. Who is his competition? He's got Jalen Hurts, Justin Fields, Geno Smith, Kirk Cousins, Daniel Jones, Derek Carr. Like, if he's in the AFC, losing record every year. But because he's in the NFC and they're just not the quarterback side of the league, he has a decent shot. It's I guess it sucks for him that like Jalen is in the same division because they would have probably be a lock to win the division every year if it wasn't for Jalen Hurts. I think Dak's on his way out too. I don't know. I feel like Cowboys should just move on. I know they probably want to take advantage of some things because I feel like if you move on from him, you almost got to move on from people like CD and all that. But unlike what Gary said, I think Dak will lose games for you, and we've seen that time and time again. Just a ill-timed pick here and there that does cost him. But if he holds up to his promise, has less than 10 picks this year, you never know. But he's going to make the playoffs probably, but it's because he's in the NFC.
Was he meaning less 10 per game, or do you know?
It's a good question. We should have asked for clarification.
We'll ask him next week since he's our special guest on the podcast. All right, Lance, number 7.
All right, at 7, I've got Coles Cash Kirk here. All right, I think he's arguably the second most underrated quarterback in the league. And I'll take everyone's comparison to him and Dak, and I'll raise you a comparison. If you look at playoff stats between Kirk Cousins and Joe the Burrow, Kirk Cousins is better in every single statistics. The only difference, Kirk Cousins' defense allows 28 points per game. Joe Burrow's allows 18. Kirk Cousins has 0 defensive turnovers forced. Joe Burrow's has 13. Not to mention the fact that how many years the Vikings have been in the playoffs and they don't have a defensive turnover in a single game. I think he's one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the league. I think he makes every throw. He's a fantastic teammate. I think he elevates the team. I think getting Kevin O'Connell was a huge boost last year. I think they needed to iron out some wrinkles. And I think this year they are up there with the Eagles in contention for being the top team in the NFC.
Wow.
Yeah.
Number 6. Number 6.
Number 6, I got Trevor Lawrence, dude. Talk about an attractive man. But on the field, we're talking, he's got better weapons than what he did last year. I think he's going to take a huge jump this year. If he ends up top 4, not going to be surprised. I've always been on the Trevor train. You know, Kel and Gary have always hated me on it. You can go back to last year's episode. I think Dad was with me defending Trevor Lawrence, but I think he's an incredible quarterback. Yeah, he had the bad first half in the playoffs, like Kellen mentioned, but if you saw him bounce back, it kind of erases it, in my opinion. But Trevor Lawrence, number 6, I think there's no better spot to put him at.
Well, number 6, I also have Trevor Lawrence, and he's got the one for the hair. Him and Kellen kind of have the same hairdo. I'm just kidding. That I think he's great. I think he hasn't even hit his peak. I think he's only going to climb. I think he's got some good surroundings. He's finally got a good coach. I think Trevor Lawrence will be in contention with some of the other guys. I mean, this list we have from 1 through 6, I mean, is really, really exciting. I believe there may be a few wrinkles in here for some of you guys, but the ones I did 1 through 6, fantastic. And I think he's still got a lot of upside.
Number 6 for me, I have Justin Herbert. I think this is second lowest so far compared to Kellen's, I think. But I think he's got so much talent and he's got such an arm. He's such a playmaker, but he just can't win the big games. And kind of the same thing as I was saying with Lamar. Like, he plays against the better quarterbacks multiple times a year and he just can't get it done. So until he does that, and until, like Kellen said, until they get a new head coach, I don't see him being much higher. I would put him as probably, I don't know, man. He's, like I said, he's fun to watch, but I just don't see him ever winning like a Super Bowl for sure, or making it very deep in the playoffs just because of the competition he has in that conference. I think he's, one of the bottom tiers in those quarterbacks of eliteness. So
Phillip Rivers 2.0.
I mean, yeah, honestly, like he'll win you a lot of games. He'll win divisions. He'll do this stuff and that, but he's never going to win you any playoff games. and I'll have a lot of kids. So
6, I got Aaron Rodgers. He's one of the best regular season quarterbacks you'll ever see. I think compared to last year, he's got a better team. Granted, it seems like he brought a lot of people with him, but he just seems a little bit more loose right now, a little more happy, excited. He's, did some substances that kind of cleared his mind up, according to him. I think he's in among the easier divisions on that in the AFC. Like, the biggest competition is going to be Miami, but I think it's going to be a classic early exit if they make the playoffs. I think also some of it's age. Like, he can play, but he's past his prime. I think we'll see a solid regular season from him. So that got him at 6, but I think it's getting close to the end.
At 6, I've also got Aaron Rodgers. I guess me and Kellen didn't get the memo to put him at 7, so we've got him at 6. I think offensively they're one of the more stacked teams in the league. I think their offensive line is better than some people think. Obviously, their running back is stacked with Brees Hall. Then they just made a signing to bolster it that they might get Dalvin Cook. It's potential to go there. That would be insane. And I think they've got probably a top 3 defense in football this year. I mean, their defensive line's insane. Sauce Gardner's insane. They drafted some defensive players I think are just going to be studs. So I think the defense helps them out, unlike Green Bay's. And I do think they make the playoffs and make probably the divisional round, but I don't see them going much past that. Aaron Rodgers, I think, will be good this year, decent next year, and then probably fall off the cliff that everyone except a man named Tom Brady did. So
number 5.
I put number 5, Joe Burrow. Listen, I'll start off by saying it's sad that me putting a quarterback at 5th best in the league, I have to defend it in a way because that's an extremely high spot. But I think we're all tricked by the win stat and the fact that he wins. Yes, but I think if you gave any of these quarterbacks in the past few, you give Trevor Lawrence, Aaron Rodgers, you give Deshaun Watson this year, the kind of team that Joe Burrow has, I think they're going to win just the same as he does. And I'm not going to guarantee it because that's a hypothetical, but I think he's got incredible talent around him. He takes advantage of it very well. So that's not that's a good thing. People, I think, sadly enough, like Dak Prescott would kind of waste a talent or a squad that he has around him. But I think he's an incredible quarterback. I just think the win stat has kind of tricked everybody into thinking he's somebody that he's really not. But I have him at number 5. I think that's a good spot. I think that's a good spot for Joe Burrow.
Well, I've got Justin Herbert at number 5. Kellen said he's Philip Rivers 2.0. I think he's going to get a bunch of stats. I really like him. I just think the coaching there is not very good. I believe if he was in the NFC, he'd be, probably one of the top 2 quarterbacks in the NFC. He would roll in the NFC. He does play in a tough division with Kansas City, the Chargers, and the Raiders, and the Broncos. So I think he's good. I think he's really good. I think he's still got a chance to even move up. He's got to get some better pieces around him still, even though he's got Austin Eckler, he's got Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. He's got to have somebody that can. With Kellen Moore, though, I'm not the biggest fan of Kellen Moore, but then again, I'll be honest with you. I'm anxious to see how he does outside of Dallas, just because I think Jerry Jones has his thumb on everybody so much. I still don't even know if he was able to do much. So that'll be interesting to see. I think he's got a good year coming this year.
Number 5 for me, I have Trevor Lawrence. I think I might be the highest one that has him. I'm not really sure, but like Daniel said, I was a huge Trevor Lawrence hater last year. Huge one. I'm on the train now. This year sold me.
Respect.
I think the 4 interceptions in the first half, yeah, it's bad. I think it's more impressive that he came back and competed with the best player in the NFL, and for a young player to do that is even more impressive. Like, you see so many players across any sport have that kind of half. You do not see them for the rest of their career. But for him to step up like that in the playoff game against easily the Super Bowl favorites and honestly bring it down to the wire, that to me was amazing. And I think for him to turn around that team from, 1 year ago, him being the number one pick, having one of the most historical awful rookie seasons ever, to turn it around to, again, compete with the Super Bowl team in the playoffs. I think that's one of the best turnarounds we've seen in a minute, let alone for just Jacksonville in general, because they have sucked my entire life. But yeah, no, I think Trevor Lawrence, if I had to place money on a couple people to win their first Super Bowl next, he would be up there, because I would say he's right there behind the top guys for sure. And he is one of the top guys. I would love to have him on my team.
Got Lamar, number 5. I think he is the best dual threat quarterback in the history of the NFL. He can run, and he has you guys all are kind of in the Chiefs kingdom territory. So all you hear is hate on Lamar. Everybody hates him, and that's because his whole
I'm in
career.
Oklahoma. What do you mean?
Yeah, but you guys don't have a team, so you guys got that bleed through of the Chiefs fans, the people that just kind of
Honestly,
jump on the hype train.
I think the Chiefs fans left Lamar back like 2 years ago.
No, they like to say that, but trust me, they hate him because for the whole career he's been the one Mahomes has been compared to for a big threat. I like last year he only threw 7 picks. I think now that he's got this new contract, he's going to be a little more inclined to try a little harder.
How many games did he play?
I think 12, but still the year before he had 12 with 13 picks. He's got a decent team around him. He's got probably the second best tight end in the league with Mark Andrews. His receivers are fine. We'll see about Odell. It all depends on health, but I think if Odell stays healthy, he can be a decent number 2. Should never be a number 1. But I just think because of his legs and his arm, like he's not the best. I'm not saying he's got the best arm, but for a mobile quarterback, he's got the best arm that we've seen. And he keeps coming back from these injuries, unlike most mobile quarterbacks. Once they get hurt, a time or two, they're toast. So I see him having a big year. Again, they're in the AFC, so it's going to be tough to win the big game. But I think he's a top 5 quarterback.
At number 5, I got our first appearance of Jalen Hurts. I think Jalen Hurts is in a really weird spot, in my opinion, I don't think he moves up the rankings unless his team gets worse. I think the Eagles have such a well-constructed team right now that it's so hard to see whether the quarterback's good or not, right? I want to know, if we bring Gardner Minshew back and we drop him in, how good does he do with that team? Because they're great at wide receiver, good at tight end, one of, if not the best O-lines in football, and a really solid defense. I think A.J. Brown bailed him out of some balls. I think he dropped some absolute dimes to A.J. Brown as well. So I like him. I think he has the potential to be a top 3 quarterback, but I think I need to see it for more consistent years and need to see them go through some adversity and him lead them through it before I'm prepared to put him any higher than 5.
Number 4.
Number 4. Is this the highest Justin Herbert has been ranked?
Yeah.
I think he's underrated compared to what you guys are saying. I don't even know if it's underrated, but more so maybe all the other guys that you've ranked above Herbert are overrated. Because I think you guys have respect for him, but I think the fact that he hasn't won is kind of, I don't want to say invalid, but just kind of like too many question marks with the rest of the team. Because like I've said, I don't know. I'm just not the biggest fan of ranking a quarterback when there's a million other problems on the team, like faulting the quarterback, I should say. I think he's got an incredible arm. He makes, like, I think Gary you mentioned, like, he'll make mistakes, but he's also an incredible playmaker. Like, he'll extend the play past what it should be extended by. And there's only a few quarterbacks that can do that right now. And I think he's one of them. I think he's top 5 easily. But that's all I got.
Well, number 4, I got Josh Allen from the Buffalo Bills. Love to rank him higher, but he's good. He's really good. I mean, he's one of the top quarterbacks in the league. He is. He's just going to have to stop taking some hits. He gets a little bit crazy sometimes, makes some bonehead throws, bonehead decisions. Got to stop running, needs to get out of bounds. They need to get him a running game, but I mean, I know that doesn't have a whole lot to do with his ranking here, but I'm just saying I really like him. I know I said many years ago that he would be one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I have Garrett on video saying no, he will not. So I know I'm correct on that, but he's fantastic. I think the Bills, unfortunately, have probably hit their peak, and I think their window, they still got the window open, but I think it's closing fast.
Number 4, I have also got Josh Allen. He, to me, is the Luka Doncic of the NFL, one of the best players in the league, and also still one of the most overrated players in the league. For him to probably be one of the most favored for the MVP voting, he's not good. Like, he's not an MVP caliber quarterback, in my opinion. For the talent he has, for the coaching he has, for the division he's been in for so far for his career, he has not capitalized on that. And I think he is going to be one of those kind of Dan Marinos, like great quarterback, Hall of Famer. First thing that comes to mind is they didn't win anything. So that's what comes to mind for me, Josh Allen, is Dan Marino and Luka Doncic. I don't think he's a great football player. I don't think he's a good leader. And I think he's going to be someone like we forget about until we see a picture of him. We're like, oh, dang, yeah, I forgot about Josh Allen, like 20 years from now. So that is where I have Josh Allen at number 4.
Got Jalen Hurts at 4. I would have loved to put him at 3. I honestly just need to see one more good year out of him. It was almost like, it's hard to say because on paper, like, it's kind of the same with Dak. He's in the NFC, of course. Like, who's his competition? But he came out and performed in the Super Bowl. And if it wasn't for one play, probably would have won that Super Bowl. If he played a nearly perfect game, other than that fumble that they were about to go up 14-0. If it wasn't for that fumble, or they were looking like they were going to make that drive, finish that drive off. And he still only lost by 3 in the end to like one of the best teams we've seen. I think if we see, he's got a good team around him. So I think he does have a nice situation with him. I think if we see another season like last season, I would probably put him at 3. I think it's crazy. Like, I've always loved Jalen. If you would have told me that between our 3 back-to-back-to-back quarterbacks that he was going to do the best in the NFL, I would have thought you were crazy. But it's not even close. At least, granted, just 1 year, but that 1 year was better than Kyler and Baker's careers. So I think he's really good. I really hope to see him just keep improving. He's young, so he's got a bright future.
So at number 4, I'll go ahead and complete the hat trick, and I also had Josh Allen. I agree with Gary. I think he's probably the most overrated quarterback in the league. I think he took a step backwards this year, not a huge one, but a small one. You know, his yards went down, touchdowns went down, red zone interceptions went way up compared to what he had been throwing. And I just think he got a little bit worse. Now, I still think he's at 4, right? He's still a quarterback that can win you a Super Bowl, but I don't think he got any better this year. And I think that should be a warning sign kind of to the Bills and to the fans, is kind of, if he takes another step backwards this year, has he already peaked and is he on a downward slope? Because if he doesn't get better, I think they've got to add more talent to the Bills to win a Super Bowl. Again, I think they can still win one with him. I think he can be the main carrier behind that. But if he's already starting to go downhill, how fast is that hill going to roll?
Number 3.
Did you change the slide, Gary? Yes, I have Jalen Hurts at 3. I think he's going to take I'm not going to say as big of a step, but he's going to take another pretty large, substantial step forward. He's clearly the hardest working quarterback to come out of OU in the past 5 years, or however many years. Sorry, just got to throw that in there. But he's only going to get better for however long we can see. He's got. Would you say top 2, top 3 run threat as a quarterback?
I'd say number 1 personally, but
No, and if you think about it, the balance with the arm that he has, it probably is number 1 because it creates more realistic options or chances, I could say. I mean, he has an incredible arm with the legs that he has. I think number 3, I had him at number 2, then I texted Gary like last minute, kind of switched 2 and 3, but I think number 3, I think it's a good spot for him.
Well, I also have Jalen Hurts. I think he is he's just a leader. That guy, when I think of Jalen Hurts, he's a leader. He's a locker room guy. He studies like no other. Not that I know a whole lot about watching him study, but I always heard a lot about Peyton Manning study. And I know that's when I think about him. I think, he's not as great of a passer as some of these other guys, but he's gotten better. I think he's only going to get better. They gave him some weapons. I think he's the best quarterback, obviously, in the NFC. I think he's fantastic. I think he can get better. I think he could move up. I do. It'd be tough, but he's number 3.
I'll go ahead and round out this hat trick with Jalen Hurts. I said earlier, I think he's personally the best dual threat quarterback and the best running quarterback. The reason I say that is because he can run around you, just like Justin Fields and Lamar Jackson, but he can also run through you. He will run through your linebackers. He'll run through your cornerbacks. Like, you put maybe not a defensive lineman. Those guys are a little bit bigger, but he's a big dude and he can squat a lot of weight. Like, that guy is huge. But like I said, I think he's the best leading quarterback in the NFL. I think he's one of the most humble and just level-headed quarterbacks as well. I don't think we'll ever see him just lose his cool no matter what situation they're in, whether that's, 2-6 or in the middle of a Super Bowl game and they're losing or something like that. Like, he's got a very calm just presence about him. And I think that's very important for that position in the league today. But like that said, he has improved drastically in his throwing, and I don't see that stopping anytime soon just because of what kind of grinder he is. I can see him only, getting better throughout his career, and also being the one quarterback on the NFC who's competing with the AFC quarterbacks, because we all know the AFC quarterbacks are just on another level compared to the NFC. So anyways, on to Kellen.
I've got Josh Allen. I think I don't hate y'all's take with Jalen at 3. Like I said, I wanted to put Jalen at 3. I think Josh Allen is just everybody says he took a step back last year. Did he? Or did he just not live up to our expectations? He threw one less pick than the year before. His yards, a little bit less yards, but his average per throw was further. This was the second highest rating he had, and compared to the 2020 season. I think Stephon Diggs is honestly overrated. I don't think he's as elite as what we all thought he was. I don't think he has the greatest team around him. I think Dable really, losing him did affect him. I think he's the Peyton Manning to, like we've said this a million times before, but he's the Peyton Manning to Mahomes Brady. Like, he's incredible. He came into the league at the wrong time. Somebody else owns the league. I could see him winning 1, maybe 2, but it's gonna take a lot for him to ever work past Mahomes. But I I don't know. I think he's really good. He makes really good throws. He also makes some really dumb throws, but because of his beautiful throws, that's what still keeps him in this top tier. But again, he might win one, maybe two. But I do think though if they don't do well the next couple of years, like I don't think Buffalo fans are gonna be too happy.
Yeah, at number 3, I've got the man, the myth, the legend himself, Joe Burrow. Love Joe Burrow, love the Bengals, mainly because they beat the Chiefs, but also just love him. He seems like a great guy. They've got a great offensive offensive weapons up there. Their O line is obviously a pretty big question mark, and then their defense always isn't very good. Joe's pretty much got to win a shootout for them to win the game most of the time. But I think Joe's capable of that. He can make every throw. He's not as mobile as some of the other quarterbacks, but I think he makes up with that about he's just got a little bit more touch on the ball than your average quarterback to make up for that lack of mobility. And yeah, I mean, he's been in the big games. He's shined bright. Arguably, I think he should probably have a Super Bowl to his name. I just think the Rams got lucky in that game. But yeah, I think Joe Burrow's obviously a top 3 quarterback in this league, and I think he'll be there for the next 5+ years.
Number 2.
For myself, I put Josh Allen, number 2. That's the highest, right? I mean, he's a physical beast. I think you could say size alone is a talent, and he's probably up there with the most like physically gifted as a quarterback. But then he's got the arm out of like no other really. And the thing I was thinking about, the reason I switched him and Hurts is like nothing, I guess, saying Hurts can't do this starting this year, but like when the play comes down to it and the game's tight, like Josh Allen can make like whatever play you need. Like he makes the play and he can make whatever difference you need made from your quarterback to be able to win the game. I think he can make it just as well as anybody, except for obviously number 1. But I think he's extremely clutch. And I think anywhere in the top 4 is honestly pretty tight. So I'm not going to knock anybody for putting him at 4 or 3. I put him at 2.
Well, number 2, I've got Joe Burrow. I think he's fantastic. I think him and some other the quarterbacks are going to be like running the league for years. As long as he stays healthy, he's got a good solid mentality about the game. Throws the ball very well. Probably one of the best throwers I've seen. Got some good weapons as well. Dude's incredible. I think he's a leader. He's a great leader. I think I'd like to see him win a Super Bowl. If Dallas can't win it, there's several other teams I would like to see win one, but I definitely would like to see Joe Burrow. I know he smoked us whenever he's at LSU, but I don't hold him to that because guy's fantastic.
Number 2, I've also got Joe Burrow. Honestly, probably my favorite quarterback. I'll be honest, he was this close for me of being number 1. The dude is 3-1 against Patrick Mahomes. The only difference is obviously the Super Bowls and Mahomes being able to win those games. But I think he is, again, arguably the best quarterback in the NFL. Obviously, why he's number 2. Gannon saying he's got weapons. He does have weapons. I personally think he's just that good that he makes these guys good. I think we're kind of getting away from like the Brady's, Mannings, and Breezes who make their receivers better. I think he's one of those quarterbacks. I think without him, Jamar Chase, as good as he is not top 5, maybe just rounding out top 10. T. Higgins not on nobody's list. Tyler Boyd's on nobody's list. Joe Mixon's not nearly as good. That guy has a terrible offensive line, and he still manages to win so many football games. He's in the same discussion as Trevor Lawrence of being the number 1 pick and turning around the team pretty much immediately. He did kind of not bail out, but he got injured that first year, so they got another high draft pick. But for him to turn that kind of team, because they're on the same boat as Jacksonville, like they had that Andy Dalton and AJ Green kind of run, and then Carson Palmer a while back. But other than that, there hasn't been a whole lot to Cincinnati since the beginning of the franchise. But Joe Burrow, like he's so exciting. I think he's also a really good leader. I think he just does it more in a kind of similar to Jalen Hurts, more quietly than a lot of the other guys. He's not nearly as vocal, which could be bad, could be good, depending on the situation. But yeah, there's a lot I could say about Joe Burrow, and he's number 2.
Well, I'm gonna go ahead and throw that third strike. You're out with Joe Burrow. Um, I, it's a it's a rare thing these days, but I couldn't agree more with every single word that Gary said. Um, he, I think Gannon was absolutely mistaken when he said he had weapons. He has one weapon, and that is it. He has a terrible offensive line. He has 2 wide receivers that look good because of Jamar Chase, and I think Jamar Chase I think Jamar Chase is really good. I think the biggest thing that helped was the chemistry that they walked in with right from the beginning because of LSU. I think Gannon has something he'd like to say to that.
Well, last year we kind of debated a lot more, but I'm realizing we haven't this year. But what about Lance's point? What did you bring up, Lance? What kind of game was it? I can't remember. Was there like a specification? But you said Kirk Cousins' defense allows 28 points. Joe Burrow.
Playoffs in general, all playoff games.
Okay, so there's that point, but then he also definitely has more than one weapon, which I think I agree partially with what Gary said. He makes the receivers better, but it's not like Jamar Chase is his only weapon. But I think the defense allowing 18 points a game is not that many to ask your number 2 superstar quarterback to beat.
Yeah, but you can't compare a
And-
career that's been as long as Kirk Cousins. Like his defense it's going to give up more points the longer your career goes. His defense, it's just not what it could be. But it's the biggest thing is that line. They like if they were one play away from winning the Super Bowl, but because Joe Burrow got destroyed again, like I just think if he had a line, I think he'd be running the league. Gary?
Another quick thing about the whole, not really against defenses and stuff, but Joe Burrow's won 3 road playoff games, including one of those in Buffalo in the middle of January, February, something like that. Like, I mean, cold, pouring snow, and he humiliated Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills.
And Mahomes has never been in a road playoff game.
Yeah, Mahomes is a 1-1. I think that's, like you said, I think that's because he's never had to, because he's usually number 1 seed.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Burrow has proved that he can win those on the road no matter where he's playing. Home field advantage, I think it's a thing, but if they're on the road, it doesn't discount his play.
And I was right there with Gary of like, I want to put him at 1, but it's the Super Bowls. That's all it is. I personally, if I was drafting a team today, I'm taking Joe Burrow over Patrick Mahomes. I think Patrick Mahomes has a better situation. He had one of the best receivers in the league till last year. He has the best tight end in the league. He has probably the best coach in the league, top 3 for sure. He's in a great situation. Joe Burrow, Joe Mixon looks really good. He gets hurt. Samaje Perine comes in and looks exactly the same. He has one weapon, Jamar Chase. The biggest weapon with that is that chemistry. Joe Burrow, Joe Shiesty, Joe Cool, Joe Burr, Joe Chill, whatever you want to call him. He's the man.
Joe Sexy,
I mean,
that's
I
what I
go
know
that far,
by.
but some have said, I just think he's incredible. Like Gary said, lost 1 game to Mahomes, and what was that? It was by 3 points. Again, by 3 points. That he was right there. I think you get him a line, couple maybe up that defense just a little bit. It's game over for everyone else.
Yeah, I would say even if Joe only had 1 and Mahomes had 2, he'd probably be number 1. Anyways, now on to Lance, number 2.
Yeah, I know I've had some pretty hot takes so far tonight. I'm sure this is going to be another one of them. But listening to you guys talk about Justin Herbert, I think I have realized that I'm wrong in my ranking. And if I could go back in time, I would go ahead and move him to number one and move Patrick Mahomes down. I think Justin Herbert's probably the most talented quarterback in the NFL. I think he's doing an incredible job with the worst coach in the NFL, the worst, arguably the worst defense in the NFL, and horribly fragile weapons on offense. I mean, Mike Williams can't stay healthy for 2 games, but when he is healthy, they're incredible. I think he makes every throw. We saw with his rib injury last year, he's got that dog in him. He'll play through the injury. He doesn't care. I think he's a leader in the locker room. I think he's the best thrower of the football in the game. I think he can scramble well. I think if you put him in the Chiefs, he makes the Chiefs better. I think if you put Mahomes in the Chargers, the Chargers are no better. So if I could go back, I'd change it, but I do have Herbert at 2, but I could easily see him slotting into 1.
Well, everyone say goodbye to Lance because the last episode he's ever been on. Number 1. I think we'll just go ahead and say Patrick Mahomes. As much as I think every single one of us hates it, makes us nauseous.
Not
we don't
me.
like it, except for Gannon because he randomly picked him in fantasy keeper league. That's the only reason Gannon likes him.
Respect.
I don't know. We'll just open the floor on this one.
Is there really like what is there to be said? Like if we were doing by tiers, he would be in his own tier for me at least. You guys probably wouldn't do that yourself, but he's just
I disrespectfully
completely better than
disagree.
anybody else in the league in his position. Like I don't see an argument that's
Well, he is
strong
number
enough.
1 for all of us, so I don't think there's much
No, I know, but
disagree with
I guess I'm
him
just
being the
thinking
best.
about how far or how big the gap is, I guess, is what I'm emphasizing right now.
I don't
Not
think it's as
big.
big as what you say. He's had good success, but like I said, his whole career he has had the best tight end
But
in the league. One of the
last
best of all time. Tyreek Hill, I mean, he did prove he could do it without him, which was kind of a shock, but he had Tyreek Hill for the earliest stages of his career. He does have one of the best coaches.
He's got one of the best
year,
coaches in football.
Last year, I'm not going to guarantee this because I don't know if you guys said this on the podcast, but I'm pretty sure you probably said it somewhere on or off the podcast, and then also just a million fans of the NFL. But everybody was just saying, "Oh, he's lost Tyreek. He's lost this and this and this. The team's gotten worse. The real Mahomes will show out. We'll see what he's really about."
I don't know if I said,
And then he kept it. There's nothing you can really argue against that. He's just absolutely incredible. Yeah, like I said, Gary mentioned yeah, we all have him 1, so I don't know why I'm basically arguing for him at number 1, but the gap is so much bigger than what I think you guys are giving him respect.
I don't know if I said the real Mahomes would show out. I just didn't see the Chiefs doing as well as they did. I'm not going to lie there, but I don't think I thought Mahomes. I think at that point, Mahomes has the confidence just to be good. I think sometimes he's a little extra flashy, which kind of makes people like, oh man, he dove and threw a ball right to somebody's chest. Let's go ahead and add that to Madden and watch that on replay, even though it was an incomplete pass.
That was one of the best throws I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, but do you think he could just repeat that consistently? Think about this. Granted, he was only taken at number 10, but he's kind of in a Tom Brady situation.
They traded up.
They traded up, yeah.
Not as big as Brady, of course, Brady being taken way later. But what if Mahomes would have been picked number 1 for the Browns that year? You think he'd have the career he has now?
Bears, I think, right?
No, I'm looking at Browns, Myles Garrett. Then it was
Well,
Mitchell Trubisky.
Okay.
Dad's right. The Bears were going to be the team to pick him.
Okay, either way,
yes,
either of those
way.
teams, do you think either of those teams has the success, or do you think he has the same success on those teams?
Somehow you guys have it twisted to where you're using team success as a good thing for this many quarterbacks, 4, 5, 6 quarterbacks, but then Mahomes has team success and you use it against him, and he has by far the more success as a team than all the other players, but you use it against him. I guess I just don't know.
I don't think I use team success for any of my quarterbacks. I think I just use pure play. But
okay, fair enough. But for everybody else, I don't know. I'm thinking of Gary, not I don't know why it comes, but I'm
But
just thinking.
which I
But
see, I
I
do
think
see what you're
everybody. No,
saying.
I think everybody actually kind of does that. I mean, but I just don't know
While
how
I
you
see
guys
what you're
use it
saying, we
against
still all have him at
against
number
Mahomes.
one.
Yeah, he's
That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. He's one. So we all obviously think he's the best quarterback right now. I personally think, hypothetically, Joe Burrow doesn't even win a Super Bowl next year, but he beats out Mahomes again in the playoffs. Boom. He's better than Mahomes. 4-1 against him. Like, for me, I think, yes, Mahomes, again, number one, best quarterback. I do think he was drafted into the perfect situation. I think middle of the pack team, so they didn't have like just super all their talent in currently winning, like being a competitive team in like a late pick, and they didn't have just a terrible team and being a high pick. So I think that helped. I think him being with Andy Reid and sitting a year behind him and Alex Smith helped. I think it was just a great scenario and situation that made him that
I
good.
don't disagree at
Mainly
all.
also too, like because at Tech, the dude was a nobody. Like he didn't win anything at Texas Tech. Yeah, he competed with Baker in Oklahoma for that one game that nobody shuts up about that we still beat him. But like, I think he's number one. I personally don't think the gap's that big, even with the 2 Super Bowls. But that's just me. I think that team as a whole, including him, just has that experience that gives them the edge. That's what, for me, I think is
He's
the only thing that makes that team better than hypothetically Cincinnati, Buffalo, Philadelphia.
he's literally the Curry of the NFL. He's got a good team around him. I'd compare Kelsey to Thompson, like a good duo there. He's got one of the best coaches. He's got like, and then he's just this really flashy player that we hadn't really seen in a while. Um, but I don't know. He's number one, but I agree with Gary. The gap's not as big as what you're saying.
yeah.
But with the 2 Super Bowls, like you can't really argue the fact that he's number one at this point. As much as I hate it, I hate the Chiefs. I hate all the bandwagoners. I hate all the people that don't know who the quarterback was before Mahomes. They don't know any. They can't name 3 players outside of Mahomes, Kelsey, and half of them still think Tyreek's there. So like it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, he's in the best situation. He's got honestly, arguably the best coach in football right now. Andy Reid. Andy Reid is fantastic, but I don't think the gap's that wide. But I think he's going to win at least for sure. I mean, I say for sure. I think he'll win one more, maybe 2. But Super Bowl or this era of free agency, it's tough. But there's only 4 quarterbacks in the NFL right now that have even won a Super Bowl since Tom Brady's gone now. And there is, I think, 8, I believe I counted, that have been in a Super Bowl. So it'll be interesting. I think Mahomes, he'll continue to, as long as he's got Andy Reid there, they will continue to win. If Andy Reid leaves, it'll be interesting to see.
Lance, what do you think? You're still in the prime of Chiefs Kingdom right there. Like you still got to hear about it every day.
I mean, one, I think it was a perfect fit, not only from like a coaching and stylistic standpoint. I mean, I think he's got one of the most cancerous attitudes in the league, and I think he went to one of the most cancerous fan bases in the league. So I think that worked out pretty well. I think we kind of see that with his family and the people he surrounds him with. I think personally, I think he's a horrible person. He's just a heck of a player, kind of like LeBron in my eyes. I hate LeBron as a person, but you got to respect what he does on the court. But I mean, I would really pose the question to you, if you're thinking of it from a pure talent standpoint, the more and more I sit here and think about it, what does Mahomes do better than like a Justin Herbert? Because in my mind, there's basically nothing. Maybe throw from out of the pocket slightly better, but then I'd say Herbert throws way better from inside the pocket. I think they both run about the same. I think Herbert's a better leader.
I mean, you could toss Hurts and Allen in there too, playmaking wise.
I think Allen makes too many mistakes. And I think Hurts, if he continues it for multiple years, yeah, but we've only seen 1 year of elite play from him. So
Fair.
I don't know. I think the gap between 1 and 2 between him and Herbert is minuscule at this point. I'm only giving it to Mahomes because of our record the last couple of years, but I think we've also got Justin Herbert with a handful of handicaps. So I think if they were on a level playing field, I think Herbert could easily be better than Mahomes.
It'd be definitely interesting to see for sure. Very interesting. Well, you guys got anything else? It was very entertaining, very
Long.
Very well, it was long, yeah. I think I won the debate. I think my team. What we need to do, Garrett, is like get like I don't know if you can do it or I can do it. If figure it out, Bo, and get 1 through 32. List these. Have all the names. List where they were done, and then that'll give a grand total of, you know what I mean, like who. I may have ranked Justin Fields higher, somebody lower than it, but it'll give an average of where they were.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So, but Lance, we want to thank you for joining us once again, our New England Patriots insider, who had a lot of good years with the Patriots, but now he understands what it's like sometimes, with the Cowboy fans as well. So we appreciate you being on.
7 years of prosperity to prepare you for the 7
Yes.
of the famine. So.
I agree 100%. But
Better days are ahead. Appreciate
Lance-
being on.
yeah, for Lance Garrison, we want to thank you. And then for my boys, want to thank you. We all want to thank you as well for listening to our podcast, taking the time out. We know you're busy. And we always want to remind you that iron sharpens iron.
Please stay safe.
Be savage and not average.
And remember to join the skulk.
Until next time.
Good.
Goodbye,
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.